Hey guys, I wanted to kind of continue on the giving up the biscuits. Stop making biscuits and stop giving up the biscuits. What I wanted to caveat on that, so I'll make this a part 3 to say this. When you are having sex before marriage, one of the downfalls of that, okay, and this again for the ladies, I can say for the men too, but I think the ladies are most affected by this, is the fact that he's had you. That man is already having sex with you already before you get married. So he's getting it. You all are having sexual intercourse, how many different ways, whatever. What else is there? These are things that really, once you get married, you are experiencing those things together, the newness of discovering one another. When he's already sleeping with you, when he's already doing these things, he's already getting the goods before he's even started marriage. And that's why a lot of times when it's like that, and if they're living with you too, or if they're even getting it, a lot of times you find out sometimes these men do not marry you. You find a lot of people, they don't marry them. They stay with them and they live with them forever and never marry them, especially if they're already cohabitating. And the truth of the matter is, no matter how you put it, they will be to say, oh, what's the big deal? And common law marriage has made it even more possible. Well, if the man or the woman have left their shirt in your house for more than 30 days, it's common law marriage. So now you don't really have to get married. So the thing is, well, why get married? We're already doing this. Okay, if it's not a big deal, why not get married? Because they know there's a big deal in it. But the thing is, when they're already getting the goodies, when they're already sopping up the biscuits, gravy is smothered, fried, whatever they want to do, that man has already had you. Now, there are people who can give you testimonies to say, well, you know what? We lived together and whatever, it worked out, and we're married and we're happily married. That's good. I'm not saying those things don't happen, but what you need to realize, that's the grace of God. And for whatever reason, that worked out. But there's also a vast majority of people that can attest to the fact that there are men who has had women live with them and do not marry them. So if God allowed that to happen, be thankful, because by his grace and mercy, he allowed that. And some people, even the ones that their husband married them, if you look closer, and if they were to ever to share, they can tell you some challenges and some things they may have experienced and gone through even after they got married, which happens common in marriage anyway. But sometimes when you take those premature steps or you do that, there's always some fine prints of experiences and things that you go through with that man or that woman that God allows you to work through. Just know that's his permissive will. It's never his will that we live together before, because we're fornicating, right? But be thankful that in it all, yes, he allowed that to happen. He allowed it where it still worked out for you, but that should not be, you were the exception, but that's not the rule. So getting back to that. So what happens is this. A lot of times when you're having what we call illegal, illicit sex, because you're having sex before marriage outside of the will of God or the way he ordained it, well, what happens is now you've introduced this thing into the marriage where there's a habit of eating or taking part in sex that's it's unauthorized. It's wrong. There's no respect for those boundaries and following those rules of what should and should not be done. Waiting, doing what is forbidden according to God's word, right? So what happens at that point is that's a particular spirit. So what will happen sometimes is once you get married to him, because he's used to, or her, okay? Once you get married, there's that particular spirit that has been introduced in your relationship while you're single that is used to having illicit sex, having, breaking the rules, bending corners for enjoyment. And what happens is sometimes you'll find that man that you are now married to, that woman that you're now married to, but mostly, this is mostly for the women. So I'm going to say that man that you're now married to, he's had you. And now he's looking at somebody else. She's fresh, she's new, he's never had her. And there's already familiar with that spirit that says, you can have this. We break the rules to have sex outside of marriage. You understand that? It's having sex outside of marriage. That's why there is the affairs, because once you get married, okay, we did it before marriage, but it's the whole thing is, even though he has married you, she has married you, it does not change the common denominator of having participated in sex outside of marriage, sex outside of marriage, sex outside of marriage. So unless that man gets delivered or that's addressed, you'll find that that person will be going out there and having an affair because they had you. They've been having you for the last 2-3 years. You're doing all types of stuff with that person. And now they're with you all the time. Well, they want this. They may truly in their heart believe that they love you, but now they want this because they've been practicing that of sex before marriage, sex outside of marriage. So now they want this person, and that happens. And then sometimes two people are married and they want each other because you have entertained a specific spirit that was already with you and operating in your life, in your marriage, while in your relationship while you were single. And so you think, oh, we're married now, we're good. No. You did not allow the Holy Spirit to bring you together the right way. So even though you're now together and you're in a marriage, you have still entertained a spirit that is still active. That spirit ain't married to you or her. So they're looking at it's going to operate within you. And now you find yourself maybe on chats. You may find yourself getting back with, exes, meeting up with other people, having illicit sex, sexting. That's one of the biggest things that the enemy will tell you, that, if you just talking, it's harmless. Talking is the biggest and the greatest trap. Remember, before Eve bit the fruit, I always say apple, but the fruit, there was a conversation. And if you ever really check out the history of most affairs and things that takes place in marriages and breakup relationship, it starts with conversation. You talk. Run from it as Joseph ran from it. Flee sin. Flee, run from sexual immorality. So, all I'm saying is this, and some people may say different, but why do you think there's so many affairs? There are affairs going on in just boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Then it happens in the marriage. And it's also happening in the churches a lot. There's a lot of people within the church that's having sex. That spirit runs rampant. Sexual immorality, it is the biggest weapon that the enemy uses against the church and against relationships, because it's a sin where you defile the temple of God, which is just the greatest sin, because you're sinning from within. All other sins is outside. This one, you sin inside yourself. Okay? So, what am I saying? It's important not to be, when I say making biscuits, stop doing all that cooking and doing all that domestic stuff. You should know how to cook, but stop doing those things. It's different if you make something and that person that you like happens to be there. You make something for a lot of people, but don't get into the habit of where you are just cooking and doing all these things for a man, doing all the stuff. Then you're giving up the biscuits. That means they're enjoying it, because there's something, it is like textbook proof almost, that most men, they'll be interested in you and they pursue you, and once they get it, that's it. It's not because he's a dog. He's got you. That's it. And when they receive it that way, outside of the will of God, it sets you up for all the pushback, all the fallout that comes with dealing with the enemy, dealing with Satan, allowing him to do that. Because once we do that, we open ourselves to the enemy. We open ourselves to satanic influences, demonic things, especially once you've had sex. Okay, now if you think about it, sometimes you've had intercourse, you do it regular, then somebody has an idea of, oh, well, let's, do this. So you're adding, oral, fellatio, cunnilingus, which is oral sex. You want that. Now you do that and someone gets the idea of maybe, some people, they bring other people in their beds. Then you get the idea of you want to do things a little different. You want to, go into areas that normally is not for entrance, only for exits. And so now you want to do maybe anal sex. You want to try this, you want to try that, you want to, let's do it here, let's do it there. I want you to do this. Then they're introducing, hey, let's watch some porn. Let's watch this while we're doing this. Let's try this together. Then there's role play. Let's pretend that you're this other person. And then you put on a wig or you put on an outfit and you're going to pretend that you're this and that. And the truth is, you should be very afraid if he gets more excited when you're pretending to be someone else. And even though it seems harmless, guys, you'll see how just the simplicity of it, depending on how active you are, there's more that comes. And to you, y'all, the illusion that you will get in your mind, that the enemy put, it's nothing. You're just having a good time. But what you're doing is you're opening up yourself to other things. And you find that in some situations, no matter how exciting, you could be swinging from the chandeliers, you could be doing all that role play, blah, blah, blah. You will find that this person is still going into chats. They're still sexting. They're still having these conversations. They're still doing these little things. They go out there because what you're doing is you're actually soliciting and harboring and inviting sexual spirits, demonic spirits to come into your house, to come into your bed, to come into your relationship. And once they enter into your relationship and into your life and you entertain it and you're having sex before marriage and you're doing all these different things, it's a playing field for the enemy. Because the devil does not believe in relationship. He does not want that. So a lot of times you end up with children outside of marriage, things of that nature. The relationship is broken up, there are affairs, because you're not in a place where God can move and work on you and teach this man how to be loyal and be and to desert and to put those things that he has learned and felt was to be a man, and for the woman to put aside those things that she feels is right to do as a woman and what it takes to please a man. Allow the Lord in your relationship. Do things the right way. I've been guilty of, premarital sex. Thinking, oh, this is old-fashioned. But you learn and you see that it's best to do things God's way because he knows what's best for you. And it's not that it will always be perfect, even with someone who is a man or woman of God. But it's far better because one thing when it's a man or woman of God who loves the Lord with all their heart and all their minds and all their soul, then you know that they will always gravitate to follow what thus saith the Lord. And that's always better for the both of you in your relationship. All right, guys. See ya. Have a good weekend. Bye.